This is the genius who did all the hard work so Einstein could take the credit. This man basically invented modern physics. But does he get Newton-level fame? Nope. Instead, he's the guy your physics professor nerds out about while everyone else nods like they know what's going on. With a beard that screamed Victorian wizard and a brain too big for his time, James Maxwell revolutionized how we understand light, electromagnetism, and even Saturn's rings. Because apparently, he had time for that too. Let's dive into the life of the most underappreciated genius in history. James Clerk Maxwell was born on June 13, 1831, in Edinburgh, Scotland, where the folks begin drinking as early as 5 a.m. He was born into a well-off yet somewhat eccentric Scottish family. His father, John Clerk Maxwell, was a shitty lawyer who probably hoped his son would follow in his legal footsteps. His mother, Frances Kay, came from a scholarly background and was the first to recognize that young blood wasn't just another kid who liked playing in the dirt. He was a full-blown nerd in the making. James's childhood home was the run-down Glenlair house, a remote estate in the Scottish countryside. This meant young Maxwell had plenty of time to observe nature, take things apart, and ask an absurd number of questions. His favorite phrase as a child was reportedly, "What's the go of that?" which is Scottish for, "How does that work?" A question he would spend his whole life answering. But tragedy struck early. His mother died of cancer when he was just 8 years old. His education was then left to his father and a series of tutors, some of whom were reportedly so incompetent they got fired. Imagine being so bad at your job that a lawyer-turned-single dad thinks he can do better. At 10 years old, Maxwell was shipped off to Edinburgh Academy, a prestigious boys' school where his classmates included future physicist Peter Guthrie Tait. However, young James was socially awkward, had a thick rural Scottish accent, and dressed like he had been time-traveled from the 1700s. Naturally, the other kids bullied him. But Maxwell wasn't just any nerd. He was the supercharged, math-wielding, question-asking, unbothered type of nerd. While his classmates were out playing sports, he was busy writing his first scientific paper at age 14 about how to draw perfect mathematical curves using string. Imagine being in high school and deciding that geometry with a side of knitting was your passion project. At 16, he entered the University of Edinburgh, where he studied mathematics and physics. But let's be honest, he was probably smarter than most of his dumbass professors. He spent his time experimenting with polarized light, optics, and elasticity, making breakthroughs while others were struggling to pass basic algebra. By 1850, he moved to Trinity College, Cambridge, where he absolutely dominated the academic scene, securing the prestigious second wrangler position in 1854, meaning he was the second-best math student in his entire year, because even geniuses have bad days. After graduating, Maxwell became a professor at Marischal College, Aberdeen, at the obnoxiously young age of 25. Most people at 25 are still figuring out how taxes work, but Maxwell was already lecturing students on how to be a player and revolutionizing physics. During this period, he published a paper on the stability of Saturn's rings. Up until that point, people thought the rings were solid or liquid. Maxwell proved mathematically that the rings had to be made of tiny, orbiting particles, something that NASA would confirm over 100 years later. In 1858, he married Catherine Mary Dewar, the daughter of the college's principal. She was one of the few people who could keep up with his intellect, and she played a key role in supporting his research. Unfortunately, they never had children, probably because Maxwell was too busy having intellectual babies with science instead. In 1860, Maxwell took a position at King's College London, and this is where he dropped one of the biggest W's in physics history, his electromagnetic field theory. Building on Michael Faraday's work, Maxwell developed 4 equations that described how electricity, magnetism, and light were all part of the same fundamental force. These equations were so powerful that they basically united the universe in 4 lines of math. Here's how monumental this was. He proved that light is an electromagnetic wave, meaning radio waves, microwaves, and even Wi-Fi all work because of Maxwell. His equations predicted the existence of radio waves decades before they were discovered by Heinrich Hertz. His work laid the groundwork for Einstein's theory of relativity, as Einstein himself admitted. This guy was out here changing reality itself, and yet, somehow, he never got the kind of rock star fame that Newton or Einstein did. Despite being a scientific heavyweight, Maxwell was not a flashy person like the rappers today that mumble every word. Unlike some scientists who love to take credit, looking at you, Edison, Maxwell was humble to the point of almost being forgettable. In 1871, he was appointed as the first Cavendish Professor of Physics at Cambridge, where he helped establish the Cavendish Laboratory, where you go to blow shit up, and one of the most famous experimental physics labs in the world. Future discoveries like the electron, the neutron, and X-rays all happened because Maxwell set the stage. But life had other plans. By 1877, Maxwell started suffering from stomach cancer, the same disease that had taken his mother. Despite his declining health, he continued working, never letting up on his passion for science. Even in pain, he kept contributing to physics. On November 5th, 1879, at just 48 years old, Maxwell passed away, leaving behind a legacy that would change the world. And guess what? The same year he died, a little guy named Albert Einstein was born. Coincidence? Maybe. But Einstein would later say that Maxwell's equations were the foundation of modern physics. Though he didn't get the same level of fame as Newton or Einstein, Maxwell's work literally powers modern society. Without him, we wouldn't have radio, TV, and the internet. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are based on Maxwell's equations. Fiber optics and satellite communications, quantum mechanics, and relativity, since Maxwell's equations led Einstein to develop his theories. Modern electrical engineering and telecommunications. Even NASA's work on space exploration and black hole physics uses Maxwell's equations. Yet the man himself remains somewhat of an unsung hero, overshadowed by the flashier physicists who came after him. Let's be real. James Clerk Maxwell was one of the smartest humans to ever exist, but he never got the hype he deserved. Maybe it was because he wasn't flashy, or maybe it was because he looked like a Victorian wizard who never cared about fame. He spent his time solving the mysteries of the universe while other people were arguing about nonsense. Maxwell's brain was so ahead of its time that it took decades for people to even catch up to his discoveries. The dude practically invented Wi-Fi before electricity was even properly understood. And yet, history often forgets him. So the next time you use your phone, watch TV, or connect to the internet, just remember, you owe a huge thanks to James Clerk Maxwell, the nerd king who never got his crown. Thanks for tuning in, nerds. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode of influential past and present people that shape the world around us.